Everyone knows Roseanne as someone who makes us laugh, and the Roseanne Show, even last year in 2018, according to the official Nielsen ratings that were published in December, was the most watched TV show in the United States of America for all of 2018. That's a fact. Whenever Roseanne and I do a Torah class together, which is about once a week, and Roseanne is a Torah scholar, she loves the Torah, she studies the Torah, she teaches me so much Torah, but we always end the podcast by saying that we love each other, and it's because we love our values, we share values. My friends, Roseanne Barr is a great lover of Israel. She is a great fighter for Israel. She is a great defender of Israel. In Hollywood, where many Jews duck when it comes to the controversial Jewish state, because this is a country, and who can know this better than a nation that today in international law or international recognition commemorates the liberation of Auschwitz on the 27th of June by the Red Army in 1945. Who knows better than us that we sometimes have to fight just to live. We have to fight just to exist. We have to fight just to survive. And you're not always popular when you fight to survive. And a lot of our Hollywood brothers and sisters, Jewish men and women, they duck when it comes to the controversy of the Jewish state. But there's one woman that doesn't. And she is a lioness in defense of her people. And this is what has made me so respect and admire Roseanne, that you will not brook any illegitimate, irresponsible, unacceptable criticism of your people, of this country, and of this state. My friends, Roseanne Barr is a great Lion of Judah. And it's in that vein that we wanted you to come to the world's only Jewish state, this tiny little bastion of majestic democracy that survives in a sea of tyranny. This incredible nation that gives women absolute equal rights to men, and a nation that gives LGBT men and women absolute rights. A country that defends minorities, a country with 1.5 million Muslim Arab citizens that enjoy all the freedoms of their Jewish counterparts, and that we hope, God willing, that Israel as a light unto the nations will spread its light to all of its neighbors. And that is the reason that we are opponents and foes of the BDS movement, those who seek the economic destruction and annihilation of the Jewish state for no other reason than it is a Jewish state. Absolute illegitimate criticism. And I love that Roseanne stands up to that illegitimate criticism. I love that Roseanne leverages her celebrity and her fame to be a fighter for Israel. So my friends, to all of you who are privileged to live in this glorious country, to all of you who've moved to this country, to those of you who fight for this country, to those of you who defend this country, please join me in welcoming a world-renowned celebrity, a true kochavit, a true superstar, who is a great defender and lover of this great state and a lover of her people, Roseanne Barr.
That peace is very important, isn't it? When I was 3 years old, I grew up in an apartment house that was owned by my grandmother and my grandfather, and they sponsored 50 survivors from Auschwitz to come to Salt Lake City, Utah, and live in their apartment building. And that is where I grew up. I grew up in an apartment building with people who had numbers tattooed on their arms. And every Friday night, we would go to my grandmother's home for Shabbat dinner. And when people are in trauma, they're in trauma. And they were in such trauma, these adults, that they would tell stories on Shabbat. They would tell horrifying stories that I didn't want to hear. And they would always point to me and say, little girls like her, just like her. this is what they did because they were in trauma. And I used to run into my grandmother's bathroom, and I was too short to lock the door, but I would hide in the laundry. I thought they were talking about now, the world now, or then. When I became 3 years old, I was tall enough to turn the black knob on my grandmother's door and lock them out. And that was a very happy day for me. And as I sat there in my grandmother's bathroom, I got up on her toilet, which, here's a real cute story about me. I was bringing my grandpa all these little teacups full of water, and he said, "Oh, Shana," because my Hebrew name is Shana Rivka. He said, "Shana, this is the most delicious," I was the first grandchild. "This is the most delicious water I've ever had. May I have some more?" And so I went and got him some more, and he loved that too. And then my grandmother said, "Where did you get that water?" And I said, "I flushed it." So that was maybe my first inappropriate joke, now that I think back. But it was in that bathroom, not long after that, I climbed up on my grandmother's commode, and right next to it was a sink. And the sink had a mirror above it, and behind it was another mirror on the wall that you could go like this and touch. They weren't far. And when I got up in that mirror and I opened the medicine cabinet, I saw myself multiplied by infinity in the two mirrors. And I was just, I couldn't believe it. And about that time, I saw something. And you know, you don't want to tell anybody this kind of thing, because right away they say you're crazy, especially they say it in Russia. And they put you in a mental institution, and they still do in the United States, and probably here and everywhere else too. If you have a vision from heaven or from something higher than this earth, they do think you're crazy. So, you know, I always like to cloak that in a little bit of analogy. But I did. And I heard someone talking to me. And that voice told me, "You'll be all right. You'll live." And that voice said to me, "At one time in your life, you will have the answer to every question that you have right now in your mind." And when I asked that voice not to leave, it said, "I'll always be with you." And I said, "How will I find you?" And it said, "I'm in books." Now I know how profound that is as a woman. But I lived my whole life for books. And when other kids would be playing, I would be reading, and I loved to read Torah. I don't know, since I was 3. I just wanted to know everything about God. And I wrote in my 3rd book, I had an imaginary friend like many children, but mine was God. And I did talk to God all the time, and weird things would happen, like weird coincidences and what do they call that? Synchronicities. Where I would be thinking something, and then I just get this feeling to go to a bookstore. And my son knows, my son is with me, and I've done this all over the world. And particularly I did it in the 20 years since my first show ended. I went all over the world reading books, and what a wonderful experience it was. And I have read almost every Abrahamic book that you can name. And I have to say what great joy that gives me, and I feel such a connection at those times. And every time I open the book, and I've showed this to my family, so nobody's going to believe me, I don't care. I've showed my mother, I've showed my family, I've showed friends. The question I ask in the morning, boom, I open the book and there's the answer. It has never not happened. So I've read a lot of books about what I would say, you know, especially since I was 3 years old, dreaming of when I was going to address the Knesset in Jerusalem. And so I had to be prepared for what I was going to say, you know, because I just can't stand here sounding like any other person. But anyway, I've done a lot of the research that it takes to say the things that I'm going to say. And I translate it into my own language because I don't really speak other people's language. This is one thing I've learned. I don't classify people as other people do. I'm a Torah student. I classify human beings not by their race, but by the shape of their head. Not by their body weight, but by the shape of their head. This is what I was taught. And I'm so sad that when I tried to find other Jewish people who were taught the way that I was taught, there aren't many of them. I was raised in a Sephardic synagogue in Salt Lake City, Utah, and the holy books that I read there, they were not like the holy books that you read now. And I collected quite a few of them, some of which I still have, my own grandfather's prayer book. I'm a religious Jew. I'm a real Jewy Jew. And tonight I'm speaking as a Jewish grandmother from the holiest city in the world to me, which is Jerusalem. And my prayer here tonight is that someday soon I will be able to pray at my holiest site in the world, free of arrest, and because it is against international law for a Jew to pray at the Temple Mount. Now, why is that?
Yeah.
Why is that? And then, okay, here's some common sense things. I want to say how many Muslim friends I have. And when I've been in Israel before, I didn't just talk to Jews, I talked with Muslims and Christians too. I like to talk to a large variety of people where I find a spark of divinity everywhere, in every people. And I like to interview people on the street too, so someday maybe you'll see me coming up and asking you for your opinion. But I believe that Jerusalem, the city of David, is a city like no other city that's ever been in the world. I believe this is a holy city and that it belongs to me. My family name is David, and I would like to offer my name as the deed to Jerusalem. In The Hague, maybe. I know my history. I know that when you build something on top of something else, you don't call the first layer occupiers. I know that from my studies, I've asked my rabbis, all my friends are rabbis. I know that's weird, but anyway. But you know, it's because I like to talk about Torah. You try talking about Torah in my family, here's what you get. Mother, give it a rest. And yeah, okay, well, you need to call you back from my siblings. You know, nobody ever wanted to listen to me because that's all I ever wanted to talk about. And because it's such a joy to me. So I have a lot of rabbi friends, and we like to talk Torah all the time. And so this is the Torah that I wanted to say today. This is a part of Torah. It's very deep Torah. It's something that you may not know. I'm guessing you don't. Because I didn't, and I know some facts, but I learned it. I learned it years ago when I was pregnant with my son's little brother. First of all, I should tell that story too. I had 6 eggs implanted and all 6 of them took. And I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna have sextuplets. I thought, can you see the Enquirer, the cover of the tabloids with me having sextuplets? I thought it would be so cool. But one by one, the eggs started to be absorbed, and I really wanted to have that baby. I wanted to have 5 babies because my grandmother told me every Jewish woman has to have 5 babies to replace. So I only had 4. So I went to heroic methods with big science to get number 5. So anyway, they were all hanging there, but all of them but one was hanging there by a thread, and they took me in this room and they hooked me up to this machine where I could speak to my egg. And that was at the time where I was first learning meditation. And I could see the effect of my voice on the egg day by day. And by the 3rd day, it had stuck. It stuck to the wall. And I had to be in bed for 12 weeks. I couldn't move. So thank God for the OJ trial is all I can say. It was at the perfect time. But I did. I learned so much about meditation, controlling my body, controlling my thoughts, and I began to be very kind of addicted to studying about meditation and doing it, focusing and concentrating, which had been very hard for me. So I studied a lot of Torah, I studied a lot of Kabbalah, I studied a lot of Zohar, I studied a lot of Midrash, I studied a lot of study. I went all over the world. I went to Prague to study the Golem of Prague, the story that I always have loved that story. I've come to Israel to go to every mikvah here, including the mikvah of the high priest. I went into the mikvah of the high priest in Arab territory, and they were so kind. They were so loving and so kind, and I always mention that. Well, when I got down to the water, it was about 30 below or something. It took me 8 hours to submerge. It took me 8 hours, 1 toe at a time. But I did it for Klal Israel. So finally, after about 8 hours, I'm swimming like a fish in there. I don't even feel cold. And, you know, saying the prayers that we say at mikvah. Here's what I want you to know. We're in a time in Israel that we're surrounded by 2 things. The best leaders on the inside, here in the Knesset, and the best enemies on the outside. We must take the best of each other and use it to defeat 2 enemies. The external enemy, which is all the nations that try to eliminate us, and the internal enemy, which is the lack of understanding and unity and love from one Jew to another Jew. We are now in the portion of Mishpatim that talks about slavery. If we cannot control our temptations of jealousy or anger with each other, then we are giving that enemy the weapon to destroy us. we can bring peace among us and love among us. And from that force, the world will love us. If the world sees two Jews fighting at each other and calling each other names, that affects them. Because I've learned through my whole life, people think the Jews are magic. And they want to keep their Jews to themselves. They don't want their Jews to leave and go be with other Jews in the Jewish place where you can say the Jewish prayers. They fear that. Rav Kook, who wrote all the books on Zionism, whom I love, called these times also, or wrote, when the nation returns to its land, it will return to its national character. That's the light, the blinding light, or wrote, of the promise of Israel. And our national character is as such. I figured this out for you. Our national character really rests on loving each other and feeling love. Do you guys know what it feels like to feel love? I would ask you now to just go to the place that, if you've ever had it, where you just can feel love in your heart, in your body, in Bina. Feel love. One level above feeling love is feeling joy. Now go from love to feeling great joy. You can remember the happiest thing you've ever done in your whole life. The happiest feeling. And may we stay there, because that is our weapon. The weapon that can't be beat. Feeling love for each other and joy in Torah that can't be beat. And when you feel those things, Kabbalah tells us that we excrete a certain enzyme. I don't know how many Kabbalah students there are here, but we study about how the liver overcomes the heart. Has anybody studied that?
One person.
Well, you know, I'm available to teach people who want to learn about meditation. That is the cornerstone of Judaism, is deep, deep prayer and meditation and study of Torah. It's easy and wonderful. So I wanted you to feel love and remember that our national character is one of love and joy and of unceasing determination to create a world that works for all children, for all of its children. I believe our national character is like my character. It's the character of a Jewish grandmother, because I take all the children of this world as my grandchildren, because that is what Judaism has taught me. World, and I will not stop until I have affected that, until there are steps taken towards that, to end the abuse of children on this planet, to end laws that protect the abusers of children on this planet. We have enough money to make this planet Disneyland for every kid who lives here, and it's time we did that. And I say that from all rote, because I am here in my homeland, and my national character is alive and well. Thank you.